My fortune cookie said they were watching. I looked up, and they were. I think the last truly peaceful moment I had was in a cheap noodle joint off the interstate. For 10 hours a day, I work in a building with no windows, listening to the drone of a million tiny fans. I'm a server technician. It's my job to make sure the digital heart of the world keeps beating. And most days, that heart sounds like a migraine. The only thing that gets me through is knowing that when my shift ends, I can walk across the cracked asphalt of the parking lot to the Red Lantern. It's not much. A generic, fast, casual Chinese place, wedged between a vape shop and a failing mattress store. But it was my sanctuary, my ritual. I'd always grab the same booth in the back corner, the one where the worn vinyl was split just so, and you could look out the big plate glass window at the scraggly patch of woods behind the building. Last night was no different. I clocked out, the hum of the servers still rattling in my skull, and made the pilgrimage. The familiar smell of ginger and hot oil washed over me as I stepped inside, a kind of baptism that cleansed the day's sterile coldness. I ordered my usual spicy pork noodles and an iced tea so sweet it made my teeth ache. I ate slowly, letting the burn of the chili and the noisy chatter of the other customers dissolve the tension in my shoulders. The family in the booth across from me argued playfully about a movie. Two teenagers on a clumsy date giggled near the soda fountain. The cook shouted orders in a language I didn't understand. It was the perfect symphony of normal life, my life. As always, I saved the fortune cookie for last. It's a stupid habit, but I like the idea that the universe might have a little note for me, tucked inside a crunchy, flavorless shell. I broke it open with a satisfying snap. The little slip of paper unfurled in my palm. I smoothed it out on the sticky tabletop. The black ink was sharp, precise. It wasn't one of the usual vague predictions or lucky numbers. It was a command. Don't look up from the paper. I chuckled. A weird one. Some kind of marketing gimmick, maybe. I read it again, and a third time. My smile faded. The words just sat there, stark and absolute. A cold little knot formed in my stomach. It was ridiculous, of course. Just a piece of paper. But an unseen force seemed to press down on my head, holding my gaze. I kept my eyes fixed on the fortune, but my ears started to strain, trying to catalog the sounds of the restaurant. The sizzle from the wok. The clatter of a dropped fork. The pop song whining from the overhead speakers. One by one, they began to disappear. First, the music cut out. Not a fade, just a sudden, clipped silence. I told myself it was a technical glitch. Then, the shouting from the kitchen stopped. The playful argument from the family in the opposite booth went quiet. The teenagers' giggles vanished. The only sound left was the low electric hum of the drink cooler. And then, with a final definitive click, that went silent too. The absence of noise was a physical thing. It was heavy, pressing in on my eardrums. I could hear my own blood pounding in my veins. My breath hitched in my chest. I had to look up. I had to prove this was just in my head. That I was just tired from a long shift. Slowly, fighting against the warning on the paper, I lifted my head. The restaurant was just as it was moments before, full of people. But it was a photograph. A twisted, living photograph. The family across from me was frozen. The mother held a spoon piled with rice an inch from her son's open mouth, her smile a strained, painted-on thing. The father's hand was halfway to his drink, his fingers curled stiffly in the air. Their eyes, all of their eyes, were locked on me. The teenage boy's arm was around his date, but his head was craned at an unnatural angle, his gaze burning into me from across the room. The girl beside him was a statue, her straw poised just above her lips. Everyone, every single person was staring at me, not with anger or curiosity, but with a vacant, terrifying intensity. They were still in their poses, living their lives, but their attention, their entire being, was focused on my corner booth. Their bodies were going through the motions, but their souls were pointed at me. My gaze snapped to the employees behind the steam table. They stood perfectly still, ladles and tongs hovering over the food. Their faces were slack, their jaws hanging open slightly, but their eyes were sharp and predatory, watching, waiting. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed its way up my throat. I couldn't breathe. The air was thick, suffocating. My hands trembled, and I fumbled for my phone on the table, anything to break the spell. My fingers knocked over my plastic cup. It hit the linoleum floor with a clatter that sounded like a gunshot in the crushing silence. And in that instant, the world roared back to life. The pop song blared from the speakers again. The family was laughing, the little boy chewing his food. The teenagers were whispering to each other. The cooks were shouting. It was all back, all normal. I gasped, sucking in air like a drowning man. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt insane, like I had just woken from a waking nightmare. I risked a glance at the counter. Most of the workers were busy, slinging noodles and scooping chicken. But one of them, a young man with dark, deep-set eyes I'd never seen before, wasn't working. He was standing by the register watching me. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't threatening. He was just observing. As our eyes met, he slowly lifted his hand. Between his thumb and forefinger, he held a single, perfect fortune cookie. He held my gaze, his expression unreadable. Then, with a slow, deliberate pressure, he closed his fist. The cookie didn't just break, it disintegrated. A fine, pale dust trickled through the cracks between his knuckles and drifted to the floor. He gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Then he turned away and started wiping down the counter as if nothing had ever happened. I left my food. I left my $20 bill on the table. I stumbled out into the night, the bell on the door chiming my retreat. I didn't look back. I don't go to the Red Lantern anymore. I take the long way home from work now. But sometimes, when I'm alone in that server room with the endless drone, I feel it. That heavy, focused silence. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to my bones, that they're still watching.